Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on what time you're watching this. My name's Connor from 905 Review. You guys are checking out our series, Give This a Spin, where I recommend you some of my favorite albums. Here we are checking out the pioneer, the legend, the rock god, if you will, Jimi Hendrix and his band for their first album, Are You Experienced? Jimi Hendrix was born in Seattle, Washington, eventually picking up guitar as a teenager. After a brief stint in the army, he returned to his playing ways, earning backup spots with the Isley Brothers and later Little Richard. Yet it was playing with Curtis Knight and the Squires that led to his big breakthrough. After a particularly fantastic performance in New York City in 1966, Hendrix was approached by the girlfriend of Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards. After some failed attempts with different managers, she eventually got him connected with Chaz Chandler, former bassist of The Animals, who you may remember for their big hit, House of the Rising Sun. Chandler would have Hendrix join him in London, where he was impressed with his rendition of the Billy Roberts song, Hey Joe. Afterwards, he would introduce the guitarist to Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell, and the threesome would make up the Jimi Hendrix Experience. And with these perfect complementary pieces, Jimi took the world by storm. He had the talent, he had the flair. Only a couple shows into his stay in the UK, and he was already gaining the attention of the Beatles, The Who, Cream, all the biggest rock acts of the 60s. Because not only was his skill with the guitar undeniable, he did everything from playing it behind his back, playing it with his teeth, even just setting it on fire at the end of a set. And all this while they only had 2 singles out. It was now time for an LP. So Jimi and his crew ask, are you experienced? Have you ever been experienced? And for that matter, what does it mean to be experienced? Well, Jimi and the Experience are glad you asked because they are more than willing to show you. The album opens off with the latter of those 2 singles, Purple Haze. It starts with this repeating guitar before these big drums come in, after which Hendrix elaborates further on that rhythm, getting into the main groove of the song. While the lyrics here are often associated with drug use, which is only further helped by the fact that Purple Haze is the name of a very popular strain of marijuana, one even earning an honorable mention on High Time's list of the 25 best strains ever, the lyrics here actually deal more with spirituality and science fiction. That's what Hendrix said about it, but it is worth noting that it's speculated this could easily be a cover-up, as the general public was a lot more weary about drug use 55 years ago than now, so you be the judge. Am I happy or in misery? Whatever it is, that girl put a spell on me. Whether it is about a wild high or traversing the valleys of Neptune, the journey only lasts a short while because it's followed up by manic depression. It's not believed by historians that Hendrix was manic depressive, or in more modern terms, bipolar. Rather, the title just comes from an offhanded remark Chandler made about him due to his apparent mood swings. I know what I want, but I just don't know, honey. Instead, the song is about how, sometimes loving a woman has its difficulties. But you know what never has difficulties? Loving music. If only there was a way you could make love to music. While you try to figure that one out, Hendrix makes love to his guitar, while the drums continue to romp away. After this is the crew's aforementioned first single, Hey Joe. It's a sad, bluesy tune about a man named Joe who finds out that his woman was unfaithful, and so he shoots her because, in his words, that ain't cool. Hey Joe, where you going with that gun in your hand? On a side note, one of my first times ever getting high, I was listening to this because it's an obvious choice to do, right? And in that moment, I remember this song hitting me so hard, I thought it was simply hands down the greatest song of all time. Whether he actually gets away with it isn't specified, though he does make his intentions to escape to Mexico to avoid repercussions known. This is followed by a brief jam, starting the fourth track, Love or Confusion. And throughout the song, Jimi ponders these conflicting thoughts and feelings he has. Is this love or just confusion? All the while, he continues grooving away. Staying on a similar path, we follow this up with May This Be Love. And here, Jimi is just in such a peaceful state. He's truly one with the world in this moment, admiring all its beauty, even if everybody else is too wrapped up in their lives to really notice it. And this feeling of daydreaming, or just being loose or weightless even, is pretty well captured in his guitar experimentation alongside his gentle singing. When my world really seems so very small, with my waterfall. At this moment, he hasn't got a worry in the world, and I'm starting to get the feeling neither should we. Don't ever change your way. Fall with me for a million days. Ending our first album side, we have I Don't Live Today. And you know what? Maybe Jimi was depressed because he's certainly not having a good time here. He doesn't know if he'll be here tomorrow, but he certainly doesn't feel like he's here today. Will I live tomorrow? Well, I just can't say. On a much larger scale, it could even be a commentary on racism and discrimination, as Hendrix, being of Cherokee heritage, later dedicated the song to Native Americans. Beginning the second side of the album now is The Wind Cries Mary. The song was influenced by a couple of people, but one that seems pretty clear is Hendrix's girlfriend of the time, Kathy Mary Effingham, who claimed the song was written after a dispute the couple had. Somewhere a queen is weeping. Somewhere a king has no wife. It's almost as if Hendrix was out having a good time, came home drunk or high, and said or did something stupid that led to this big fight. And then afterwards he was wondering if, he ruined things. He's worrying about his future, but he still gets the feeling that the two will smooth it over and eventually reconvene. If that's the case, it's a good, soulful, loving tune about perseverance in relationships. This is followed by the more upbeat jam, Fire. Now dig this, baby. You don't care for me, I don't care about that. You got a new fool, ha, I like it like that. I have only one burning desire. I always figured the song was just about some sexual tension, so I was laughing when I discovered the true backstory to it. It was apparently inspired by a time Hendrix was celebrating New Year's Eve with Redding and Redding's mother at his mother's place, and he was just cold from the winter and wanted to warm up by the fire. Better yet, before the solo in the song, he says, "Move over, Rover," which is because Redding's mother's dog was hogging up all the space by the fire, so Jimi couldn't get warm. That's what I'm talking about. Now dig this. What a backstory. And yet, unfortunately, the song might be best remembered for the Red Hot Chili Peppers covering it at Woodstock 99 and all the chaos that brought on. Moving on from there, we have Third Stone from the Sun, where we revisit Hendrix's interest in science fiction. It begins with some distorted vocals that I would never have been able to make out on my own, but the lyrics show it's two ship commanders discussing if they have found what they believe to be Earth, prompting some very sweet chords to lead us on this interstellar journey. While Hendrix, acting as some sort of extraterrestrial being here, really enjoys the Earth and all its beauty, the people on it really are something else. And so you know what? He destroys the planet. captured in the song's closing jam. At the 10th track of the album now, we have the raunchy, grooving Foxy Lady. And with all its distortion and striking chords, there really wouldn't have been much around at the time to match how hard this goes.
And you know you a cute little heartbreak,
And really, there's very little guesswork needed to figure out what the song's about, and even less so to see how hard rocking it is.
I wanna take you home. Yeah. I won't do you no harm. No.
Following that with another great track to close the album, we have Are You Experienced? Always innovating, the song opens off with what sounds like record scratching some 10 years before the method was ever developed, and is instead just the guitar and drums being played in reverse. Now that we revisit the matter, what is being experienced? It can be interpreted as a variety of things. However, Hendrix enthusiasts claim it's just complete total peace, just being absolutely one with yourself. Anything along the lines of achieving perfect unity. Jimmy wonders if you ever have, because he certainly has, and you can join him if you can join him. You dig?
But who in your measly little world are you trying to prove that you're made out of gold and can't be sold?
Now, some of you might be saying, that's not exactly how I remember the album, and you might be right. As we saw time to time through the 60s and 70s, the US and the UK sometimes had different versions of the same album. That would be the case here. We just went through the American version of Are You Experienced? The British one has a significantly weaker cover art and did not include Purple Haze, Hey Joe, and The Wind Cries Mary, as all three had already been released as successful singles, instead replacing them with the rugged, bluesy Red House, the lovesick Can You See Me, and the kind Remember, on top of also rearranging the track list. As we also see around this time, there are some different odd collectibles, such as the Dutch, French, South African, Chilean, and Taiwanese versions all having different album arts, on top of the last one surprisingly coming on an orange vinyl. Interestingly enough, 4 years later there was another different French version, and 4 years after that it came out on a picture disc. All 1993 and 94 versions of the album had yet another album artwork to it. They also contained all the songs, the ones from both the American and UK versions of the album, as well as 3 additional songs, being the B-sides to those first 3 UK singles. Stone Free, shout out Gran Turismo 3 for getting me on that one, 51st Anniversary, and finally Highway Child. This full 17-song track list was later made onto double vinyl copies of the album. In 2008, they made double CD sets that included outtakes of the songs, and in 2009, the original French version returned on all sorts of different colored vinyl variants. A 2010 CD run also came with a DVD that featured a 15-minute long making-of documentary, and at the same time there were also limited edition numbered versions that didn't feature any significant makeovers. Lastly, there's a 2014 Purple Marble vinyl, a 2016 Purple and Yellow vinyl, and in 2022, a limited edition clear vinyl box set. Where to even begin? This was the start of the legacy of a man who had become one of the single most influential musicians of all time, and we're even still seeing that today. I mean, you take a look at current popular rapper Future, who's dubbed himself Future Hendrix. Getting back to rock, he's considered among, and oftentimes the, single greatest guitarist of all time, considering his raw talent, his showmanship, and both his artistic and commercial success. As for Are You Experienced itself, it generally ranks pretty high when we're talking best albums of all time, only more so when you limit that to debut albums. I mean, really, how many more accolades can this thing earn? It's been given a perfect score by a number of publishers. It's been inducted into the National Recording Registry as one of the most important pieces of audio of all time, and it's certified 5 times platinum in the United States. Now, for any album to live up to this amount of hype is a tall task. Hendrix, with his iconic playing, style, approach to music, leaves us so much debt to his influence on the artists that he touched in the decades that followed him. He truly was one of the biggest standouts from an incredible psychedelic scene, and still rocks just as hard today. With that being said, Are You Experience gets such an easy A grading from me. To be honest, there's only a couple songs on here that individually I would give an A+ to, as in they blew me away, but the average score is so remarkably high that it's one of the most consistent rock listens out there. Those have been my thoughts on the Jimi Hendrix Experience and Are You Experienced? Let me know yours, and as always, I appreciate you for sticking around. You take care now. But real quick before we take off, what were your thoughts on the Jimi Hendrix Experience with Are You Experienced? Did I rate it too high? Did I rate it too low? Did you end up becoming experienced or finding out that you already were? Let me know down below, as well as any other thoughts or comments you might have, any other albums you might want to hear my thoughts on. And until next time, friends, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you around.